Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to the Temple Institute Parsha class. My name is Gedalia Meyer, and I'm podcasting from Ma'ale Adumim in Israel. It is not often that a person can honestly say that they have had a genuine spiritual experience. These experiences are so rare and so unfamiliar that most of us, unfortunately, probably wouldn't know one if it was staring us right in the face. It is possible this is part of the human condition. We are so embedded in the material world, and it is so all-encompassing in everything that we do, that we may not really be equipped to handle the spiritual. It seems that only unique individuals are privy to these elusive moments. These people seem to have some sort of gift, some divinely ordained something that enables them to find these experiences and to see them for what they are. Why this is so, and why those particular people are gifted in this way, is a complete mystery. That appears to be the way things simply are. And there doesn't seem to be a heck of a lot that anyone can do about it. But it sure would be nice if we could just push some sort of button and voila, there is the spiritual experience. Wouldn't it be great if we could have these things happen whenever we wished, like ordering a pizza? On the other hand, maybe it wouldn't be all that great. If the spiritual was as accessible as pizza, the spiritual wouldn't be the spiritual. It would be pizza. The reason spiritual experiences are so precious is because they are so rare. If they were easy and accessible, there would be nothing great about them. So we are stuck in this catch-22 situation, aware of the spiritual and knowing that it is almost impossible to access, but realizing that it has to be this way or else it wouldn't be worth the effort. This week's Parsha is called Mishpatim. This is a relatively long word for a Parsha, so it must mean something of significance. It turns out that this word means judgments or laws. That is what this Parsha is mostly about. It is one law after another. This is one of those Parshas in the Torah that reads like a law book. There is a little bit of spicing things up here and there, but on the whole, it is just laws. Some are pretty familiar, at least to Jews, like the law about not cooking milk and meat together. Included in this large collection of laws is the famous eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. Also, there is the classic of bribery blinding the eyes of the wise. The final section of the Parsha deals with a strange incident that seems to be a repeat or second version of the Mount Sinai experience from last week's Parsha. It is difficult to know exactly what this section really means. Some rabbinic commentaries believe that it really is a retelling of the giving of the Ten Commandments from last week's Parsha, but without the actual commandments. There is Moshe going up the mountain and several dozen elders ascending with him, but stopping at a safe distance away. There are also some sacrificial offerings with the ritual sprinkling of blood. There is a reading from a book of the covenant, which seems to be the Torah as it existed up to that point. At the very end, God tells Moshe to ascend to receive the tablets of the law. The Parsha closes with Moshe ascending and becoming enveloped by a mysterious cloud, which represents nothing less than the glory of God. This situation lasted for the classical biblical period of 40 days and 40 nights. In the middle of all this is a very strange scene, even by biblical standards. It is probably the epitome of a spiritual experience in the Bible. It is so bizarre that almost everybody in Judaism, both past and present, really has very little idea of what to do with it. In fact, talking about it in any way cannot possibly do it justice. So let's just read what it says. Quote, Moshe, Aaron, Nadav, and Avihu, who were two of the sons of Aaron, and 70 elders ascended. And they saw the God of Israel, and underneath his feet was like the work of white sapphire, and like the essence of the heavens in purity. And God did not send forth his hand against the leaders of Israel. And they gazed at God, and ate and drank. This is a fairly accurate translation of these strange verses. The only really debatable phrase in all of that is this thing about the white sapphire. Some translate it as a sapphire brick, whatever that might mean. All in all, it is about as weird as it gets in the Torah. What was this sapphire thing? Why was it, quote, under God's feet? Why is it necessary to state that God didn't send forth his hand against them? Did they do something wrong that might have provoked this? Finally, why were they eating and drinking in the middle of this vision of the divine? On top of all that, there is a general problem with the most basic element of this whole experience. According to Judaism, a person cannot see God. This limitation comes up explicitly a few parshas later in the Torah. This is about as basic as it gets in Judaism, but this vision seems to flat out contradict that rule. What are we supposed to make of all this? This last question is particularly difficult to answer. Even though seeing God in one way or another seems to happen every once in a while in the Torah, it is always brushed off as some sort of a metaphorical experience of the imagination. This one here does not seem so easy to just brush off. The Torah states it all pretty clearly, and there doesn't seem to be any room for maneuvering. It says that they saw God clearly and unequivocally. How is this to be understood? While there are many possible approaches to this whole thing, we are going to take a fairly straightforward approach with as little escape into metaphor as possible. First off, there is no question that this was a deep spiritual experience, and it would be no exaggeration to say that it is indeed the epitome of such an experience in the Bible. In some way, they saw God, regardless of any objections raised by those who find such a thing impossible. The fact that this remarkable vision is repeated one verse after another reinforces this basic fact about the experience. How exactly God is made visible is not made clear, just that in some way they did see God. The apparent contradiction between this and the explicit statement that this cannot happen, that comes up a few parshas later, is something that we will have to cover in the future. Now that we've established that much, what about the rest? The phrase, quote, underneath his feet, clues us in a little on what this vision actually was. God, as is well known in Judaism, does not have feet. This is universally agreed upon and not subject to dispute. So why does the Torah say that they saw something underneath God's feet? Feet, in this case, has to be made into a metaphor that expresses something about this vision that they were seeing. It was the thing that formed the basis of the vision. They envisioned God in some way, and at, so to speak, the very bottom of it all, the image of the sapphire entered the picture. We are going to go with the translation of whiteness of sapphire here. Underneath the image of God that they saw, there was this appearance of what happens in a white sapphire. A white sapphire is quite rare in nature, even rarer than blue sapphires. It is the gem without the elements that normally give a sapphire whatever color it may have. It is completely colorless. A white sapphire takes what light that enters it and reflects it completely without being absorbed by the elements of color. It thus has a dazzling effect, like shining light into a series of mirrors that reflect upon each other. This is the image that entered their minds as they contemplated this vision of God. In addition to that, the image also seemed like, quote, the essence of the heavens in purity. The heavens, or sky, when it is clear and unobstructed, can seem infinite in scope. This amazing and almost supernatural perception of a space has left human beings in a state of complete awe for as long as we have been capable of fathoming such things. The vision of God inspired them with such a feeling. They sensed the infinitude of God's reality as a real thing, because it was real. It also is real, but only rarely are we able to sense this reality. God did not send forth his hand upon them. Why would God be tempted to do such a thing? Because this is not the type of thing that people can do without being permanently changed. Some might have gone mad from such a vision. Others might have been unable to get back into the regular humdrum of normal life. But in this case, none were struck by such permanent side effects. They all came out of it whole and ready to walk away from their experience enriched, but still normal. In fact, they ate and drank. While this may seem a bit underwhelming after such an experience, or even sacrilegious, what the Torah means to say is that deep spiritual experiences such as this need not knock us out of normal life. We can still eat and drink and go back to doing whatever it is we did before having the experience. We may be changed from the experience, but that doesn't mean that we cannot still function as a normal person. After a divine spiritual experience, we can still enjoy pizza and beer. This last point may be the most important of this whole incident. A spiritual experience like this is rare, even for the Bible. This was not an everyday experience, and in fact, it only comes up once in the entire Bible. We cannot expect to push some mental button and have a similar experience. However, these things are possible. They can happen even to the likes of us who are not in the Bible. They may happen without much effort, or they may be the result of deep meditative concentration. They may be spontaneous, or they may only happen after years of training and practice. But when they do happen, life goes on. It may not be exactly the same, but we should not expect or hope that it will be the same. But we will still be who we were before, enjoying life and enjoying people and eating and drinking. Spirituality does not necessarily oppose the material. It complements it. It reveals that there is more to life than just the material. The spiritual is out there, or perhaps in there is more accurate, and waiting for us to access it. It is right there at our fingertips, awaiting our touch. We only have to reach out and enter its blessed realm. Who knows what we may see or sense or experience, but we can rest assured that whatever that may be, we are fully capable of emerging from the experience as our own selves, full and intact, and ready for the next experience that life throws our way. Shabbat Shalom.